Each morning, the same silent feline sat outside the bakery door. He never begged for crumbs. He simply walked inside, rested on the second chair for a while, and then quietly departed. But then one morning, Elena noticed the strange pouch tucked under his collar. The scent of cinnamon hung thick in the crisp morning air. Elena wiped down the front counter with a damp cloth. She had worked at this establishment for 6 months now, and already knew most of the regular patrons by name. But one visitor had no name and never placed an order. The cat appeared at the front door at exactly 6:54. He was large and slow-moving, with orange fur streaked through with cream. His emerald eyes carried a strange weight to them, something almost sentient. He sat on the doorstep without moving, did not meow or plead for scraps. He simply waited there, like he had an appointment. Elena glanced at him and smiled softly. "Good morning, Ginger," she said. She had given him the name herself about 4 weeks ago. He had been coming every morning since then, always at the same time, always to the same spot. He would sit outside the door for a while, then he would walk inside and jump onto the second chair by the window, stay for maybe 25 minutes, and then leave without making a sound. "He showed up again," said Leo, the young baker assistant. He carried a tray of fresh rolls from the back room, still steaming. "Every single day, right on schedule. He probably likes the warmth in here," Elena said. "Or maybe the aroma draws him in. Maybe the poor guy is just lonely," Leo replied with a half grin. They both laughed at that, but neither of them understood how far from the truth they were. This teaches us that there is often a deeper story behind the behavior we see in others, even animals. The weeks kept passing, and Ginger became part of the bakery. Customers grew fond of him almost immediately. Children reached down to scratch behind his ears. He never once scratched back or hissed at anyone. He accepted the attention with calm, quiet dignity. Then he would return to the chair by the front window, always that same chair and never a different one. Elena started noticing something peculiar about his behavior there. The chair faced the street outside. Ginger would sit on it and stare through the glass for the entire visit. His green eyes would scan the sidewalk back and forth, over and over, like he was searching for someone who should have been there. "What are you looking for out there, Ginger?" Elena whispered one gray morning. The cat turned his head toward her and blinked slowly. Then he looked right back at the window. "Before we continue with the mystery behind this loyal cat, please do not forget to reflect on the importance of small routines. You might think you know where this is going, but you probably do not." One cold Monday in November, Marcus returned to the bakery after several weeks away. He had been visiting his family in a distant land. He walked through the back door, hung up his jacket, tied his apron, and stepped into the front of the shop like any other morning. Then he stopped dead in his tracks. "Wait a moment." He pointed straight to the orange cat sitting on the chair. His face went noticeably pale. "Where did that cat come from?" Elena shrugged casually. "He just started showing up about 4 weeks ago. We call him Ginger. He does not bother anyone." Marcus shook his head slowly and deliberately. "I have seen this cat before." He walked closer to the window chair. The cat looked up at him with those deep green eyes. "This is Mr. Thorne's cat." "Who is that?" "Silas Thorne, the old man who used to come here every single morning for years." Marcus's voice dropped low and careful. "He always sat in that exact chair where the cat is sitting now." A strange chill moved through the bakery. Elena stared at the cat, then back at Marcus. "I do not remember any old man like that. You started working here after he stopped coming in. But he was a fixture of this place for decades. He always ordered one cinnamon bun and sat right there by the window. And his cat came with him every single time." Marcus crouched beside the chair and let Ginger sniff his hand. "This is definitely the same cat. I would stake everything on it. So, where is this Silas Thorne now?" Marcus stood back up, and his expression shifted to something darker. "Honestly, I have no idea. He just stopped coming one day, maybe 7 months ago. Nobody mentioned it, and nobody thought to ask." The bakery felt quiet after that. The cat on the chair suddenly looked different to everyone in the room, like a living echo from a life that had quietly vanished. "He comes every single morning," Elena said softly. "Same time on the dot. Same chair by the window. He waits for about 25 minutes, then he leaves." Marcus looked at her with wide, unsettled eyes. "That is exactly what Mr. Thorne used to do." Nobody said a word for a long time. A cat returning to a place his owner once loved, sitting in the chair where his owner once sat, searching the street for a face that would not appear. The weight of it pressed down on all of them. But they were wrong about one important thing, something they would realize later. 3 more weeks drifted by, and the mystery of the old man lingered over the bakery like fog. Marcus asked around the neighborhood whenever he had the chance. Nobody had seen Silas Thorne in months. Some assumed he had quietly moved away. Others thought maybe he had passed on. One neighbor down the block remembered seeing an ambulance outside his house. The cat kept coming without fail. Every morning at 6:54, same chair by the window. Then one cold morning, everything changed at once. It was in early December. The first real frost of the season had painted the windows white. Elena arrived before dawn, unlocked the front door, and started the ovens on their usual schedule. At 6:54, the familiar orange shape appeared in the doorway. But something about today was unmistakably different. Around the cat's neck hung a small cloth pouch that had not been there before. It was tied to his collar with a piece of rough twine. The pouch was no bigger than a closed fist. Beneath it lay a folded piece of paper. Elena knelt down on the cold tile floor. "What have you got here, Ginger?" She carefully untied the bag from his collar. Inside were a few coins. She unfolded the piece of paper. The note read, "If this cat still comes to your bakery, could you please send one small cinnamon bun with him? I cannot walk that far anymore. Please, take money." Elena read it once, then twice, then a third time. Her eyes filled with tears before she could stop them. "Leo," she called out, and her voice cracked on his name. "Leo, you need to come here right now." Leo rushed over from the back and read the note in silence. His face changed completely as the words sank in. His jaw tightened, and he swallowed hard. "He is alive," Elena whispered. "Mr. Thorne is still alive out there, and he is completely alone," Leo said quietly. They looked at each other across the counter, then down at the cat. Ginger sat perfectly still on the floor, patient as ever. His green eyes watched them both with a kind of quiet understanding, as if he knew exactly what the note said. Elena walked to the display case with purpose. She picked out the freshest cinnamon bun on the rack, still warm from the morning oven. She wrapped it carefully in parchment paper and placed it gently inside the cloth pouch. She tied the bag back onto Ginger's collar and dropped the coins into the register. The cat stood up the moment she finished, then turned and walked calmly to the door. He paused on the threshold and looked back at Elena with one slow, deliberate blink. And then he stepped outside and was gone, carrying a warm cinnamon bun home to a man the entire world had forgotten about. The very next morning, Ginger returned at the usual time. Same door, same chair, same patient routine. And around his neck hung the same cloth bag with more coins inside, and another folded note. "Thank you. The bun was perfect, just like it used to be. You have no idea what this means to me." Elena wiped her eyes and packed another bun without hesitation. She tied it to the collar and watched the cat leave through the front door. The morning after that brought yet another note. "Could you add a little extra cinnamon on top? I always used to ask for that." She laughed through the tears this time. She dusted extra cinnamon across the warm glaze, tied the bag to his collar, and sent the cat on his way once more. This became the new daily ritual, as steady as the sunrise. Rain or shine, cold or warm, he was never late and never lost. But Elena could not stop the questions from circling through her mind. Who exactly was this man? What had happened to him? Why was he sending a cat to buy his bread? She found Marcus in the back and pressed him for details. "Do you have any idea where he actually lives?" "Somewhere close by for certain. He always walked here on foot." "We need to find him," Elena said, and her voice carried the kind of firmness that left no room for debate. "We need to make sure he is actually okay." Marcus hesitated at first. "Is it really our place to get involved? A man is sending his cat to buy bread because he physically cannot walk to the store. He is alone and he obviously needs help." "Yes, Marcus, it is absolutely our place to show compassion to our neighbors." Marcus nodded after a moment. Of course, she was right. The following morning, Elena had a plan ready. She packed the cinnamon bun as usual and tied it securely to Ginger's collar, but this time she asked Marcus to follow the cat once he left. "Stay far enough back that he does not notice you," she said. "Just find out where he goes and come straight back." Marcus waited by the front window until the cat slipped out through the door. He followed at a careful distance, about half a block behind. The cat moved with clear purpose and steady steps, no hesitation or wandering at all. He knew exactly where he was heading. The cat stopped at a small house. It had faded blue siding and a dark red front door. A garden sat out front that had clearly once been something beautiful. Now it was overgrown with dead stalks and tangled vines. Marcus stayed on the opposite side of the street and watched. The cat walked straight up to the front door, sat down on the welcome mat, and let out one single clear meow. The door opened with painful slowness. A hand appeared first, thin and spotted with age. Then a face emerged behind it. An old man with deep-set eyes and silver hair combed neatly to one side. Marcus recognized him in an instant, Silas Thorne. But the man looked so drastically different from the person Marcus remembered. The old man bent down toward the cat, and it clearly took him a very long time. He untied the cloth bag from the cat's collar with his one good hand. He lifted out the cinnamon bun and held it right up to his nose. Then he breathed in slowly and deeply with his eyes closed. Marcus watched as something shifted in the old man's face. The years seemed to fall away for just a moment. The pain and the loneliness disappeared. Then the moment passed and Mr. Thorne opened his eyes again. He looked down at the cat with gentle, shining eyes. "Good boy, Marmalade," he said. "That is my good boy." Marmalade. That was the cat's real name all along. Marcus turned away from the house and wiped his eyes quickly with the back of his hand. He walked back to the bakery in silence. He could not manage to speak for several minutes after he arrived. "Well?" Elena asked the moment she saw his face. "Did you find him?" Ren told her everything he had seen. "Is anyone taking care of him at all?" "I did not see a single other person there. The house looked completely quiet, like he is absolutely alone in that place." Elena made her decision that very afternoon without a shred of hesitation. She would go visit Silas Thorne in person, not to deliver bread, just to make absolutely certain he was going to be okay. She packed a box with care, 2 cinnamon buns, a loaf of fresh rye bread, and a small container of potato soup from the cafe next door. She walked the same path Marcus had described. She knocked on the dark red door and waited. It took nearly a full 3 minutes before it opened. Silas Thorne studied her face with obvious confusion at first. Then his gaze dropped to the box in her hands. His expression shifted. It looked like recognition. "You are from the bakery," he said in that thin, careful voice. "My name is Elena. I work the morning shift there. Would it be all right if I came inside for a bit?" Elena asked gently. He nodded without a word and stepped aside. She entered the small house and looked around. It was clean inside, surprisingly so, but the rooms felt sparse and still. Elena set the box down on the kitchen table and pulled out a chair across from him. The cat jumped up onto the table between them. He looked back and forth from one face to the other, as if he was carefully supervising the entire conversation. "The stroke hit me one morning," Silas said without prompting. He did not wait for her to ask. "I woke up face down on the kitchen floor and I could not move anything on my left side. I tried to call out for help, but nobody could hear me through these walls. It was Marmalade who ended up saving my life. He knocked the telephone off the kitchen counter, and I managed to dial for help with one hand." Elena pressed her fingers tight against her lips. "He spent 2 months in the hospital after that. Then many weeks of rehabilitation at a care facility. Then finally home again, alone with Marmalade in the quiet house. His son Julian lived nearly 5 hours away in a different city. He called often. I can manage well enough on my own," Silas said, and his voice carried a stubborn kind of dignity that Elena found both heartbreaking and deeply admirable. "Everything is slower than it used to be, but I can still cook for myself. I can clean. I get myself dressed each morning. I do what needs to be done. But you cannot walk to the bakery anymore. I cannot walk much of anywhere at all, truth be told. Maybe 2 steps out to the garden on a good day. 10 steps to the mailbox and back. That is the whole size of my world now. When I first got home from rehabilitation, Marmalade confused me quite a bit. He kept leaving every morning at the exact same time, right around 6:45. I could not figure out where on earth he was going. A soft chuckle escaped him. Then one morning I pulled myself up to the window and I watched him walk straight down the street toward town, and I finally understood what he was doing. He was going to our place, keeping our routine alive all by himself. He had not forgotten. And that is when you decided to send the note," Elena said. "I nearly talked myself out of it a dozen times. It felt ridiculous, honestly. An old man tying a note to his cat's collar to buy a pastry. What kind of person does that? But I miss those mornings more than I can put into words. The smell of cinnamon baking in the ovens, the taste of that bun with the glaze on top. It was like getting a small piece of my old life back again." Elena reached across the table and took his hand in both of hers. "Thank you for this," he said. "And I do not just mean the bread. I mean for sitting here with me." "I am going to come back tomorrow," Elena said at the door. "You really do not have to do that. I know. But I want to. And that is what matters." She walked home through the fading winter light with something warm and urgent burning in her chest. She pulled out her phone and called her cousin Sarah before she even reached the end of the block. "I need your help with something important," she said. "There is an elderly man in our neighborhood who had a stroke. He lives completely alone and nobody is looking after him properly." Sarah worked as a social services coordinator. Within 2 days, she had connected Silas Thorne with a home assistance program. Physical therapy sessions started the following Monday at his home. Word about the story spread quickly through the bakery. Then it traveled out into the neighborhood like a current. The tale of the cat who delivered bread every morning. People stopped by the shop hoping to catch a glimpse of Marmalade. They brought cat treats, a new padded collar, and a warmer, waterproof bag for the winter deliveries. But the most important thing never changed, and it happened quietly every single morning. At 6:54, Marmalade still arrived at the bakery right on schedule. The cloth bag still hung from his collar on its piece of twine. But the notes inside were different now. Small updates about his days, the progress in recovery. And whenever she could steal a moment, Elena walked to the blue house bringing bread, conversation, and the quiet comfort of not being forgotten. The other workers at the bakery started visiting on their own as well. One bright April morning, the front door of the bakery swung open at 6:54 minutes earlier than the usual schedule. Every head in the shop turned toward the entrance at once. Silas Thorne stood in the doorway leaning on his cane. His left arm was still weak and his steps were still careful, but he was standing there on his own 2 feet inside the bakery. And right behind him, walking at the exact same unhurried pace, was Marmalade. "1 cinnamon bun, please," Silas said with the hint of a grin. "Extra cinnamon on top, if you would be so kind." The bakery erupted around him. Elena came out from behind the counter and threw both arms around him. Leo let out a cheer that rattled the coffee cups. Marcus clapped so hard and so long that his palms stung afterward. Customers who had followed the story over the months rose from their seats and applauded. Silas waved them all off with a shy and embarrassed grin. He made his way across the shop to the second chair by the window and sat down with a long exhale. Marmalade jumped up beside him without missing a beat. And for the first time in over a year, the old man and his cat shared a morning together at the bakery, side by side. The cloth bag still hangs from Marmalade's collar every morning, but it does not carry coins anymore. Now, it carries notes back and forth, small handwritten messages between a bakery and an old man who found his way back to the world. And every morning, without fail, an orange cat with steady green eyes walks through the front door of the bakery. He arrives at almost exactly the same time. He does not meow, and he does not cause any trouble. He simply walks to the second chair by the window, settles in, and waits. But these days, he does not wait alone. Sometimes the smallest loyalty in the world can save a life. It teaches us that even when we feel forgotten, there are bonds of love and routine that can bridge the gap back to society. And sometimes, one warm cinnamon bun is enough to bring an entire world back from the edge of disappearing. Thank you for reading this story. If you enjoyed this story, please do not forget to share it with someone who needs a reminder of the power of kindness. It helps us grow and keep sharing these warm lessons.